Where are you watching from? Midnight, dawn, lunch break at work, or somewhere between half asleep and fully feral? You're in the right place. Drop your location and the exact time in the comments. It helps summon this strange little community of night owls, early risers, and history addicts scattered across the world. Now, dim the lights. Turn your screen brightness down. Let's begin. Picture this. A queen sits at a table draped in velvet, a jeweled goblet before her. Courtiers watch as she raises it slowly, lips touching the rim, the liquid inside shimmering in candlelight. It could be wine, it could be medicine, or it could be death. In Renaissance Europe, poison was the invisible assassin, slipping past guards, bypassing swords, striking at the dinner table. And this queen, knowing her enemies circled closer every day, did the unthinkable. She drank poison on purpose, not enough to kill, just enough to make her stronger. This practice has a name: mithridatism, drawn from Mithridates VI of Pontus, an ancient king who so feared assassination that he dosed himself with toxins daily until his body could withstand what would kill another man. Centuries later, whispers claimed queens adopted the same strategy, believing immunity could be brewed in their veins, sip by sip. In a world where kings could fall to daggers in the dark, queens were far more vulnerable. They were surrounded by rivals, by ambitious families who wanted their throne, and by courtiers who smiled in public while plotting in private. Poison became the most feared weapon in Europe because it left no visible wound. One sip of wine, one bite of fruit, and the problem disappeared quietly, which made the dining hall more dangerous than the battlefield. And so the queen's daily ritual, drinking what should have been deadly, was more than habit. It was defiance. Each swallow was a statement to her enemies. You cannot kill me, because I am already stronger than your weapon. But the court didn't see courage when they watched her drink. They saw suspicion. Whispers spread that she was obsessed with toxins, that she mixed her own brews, that she studied venoms like a witch. For her subjects, it was hard to separate reality from rumor. Was she defending herself against poison, or mastering it to use against others? Either way, the image stuck. A queen sipping from a cup that might have carried death. Her every breath a gamble. Her every heartbeat proof that she had outwitted fate for one more day. And in her world, where assassination was as common as coronation, survival was itself a kind of sorcery. If you want to understand why a queen might drink poison daily, you need to step into the suffocating atmosphere of Renaissance courts, where trust was fragile alliances shifted overnight, and the most powerful people in Europe were quietly terrified of their own dinner tables. The Renaissance is often painted as a golden age of art, music, and discovery. But beneath the frescoed ceilings and glittering banquets, poison was the era's invisible currency. It required no armies, no battlefields, just a vial slipped into a goblet, a powder folded into meat pies, a tincture laced into perfume, and it was everywhere. In Italy, the Borgia family became infamous for their rumored mastery of toxins. Whispers claimed Cesare and Lucrezia Borgia carried special rings with hidden compartments, able to sprinkle poison into food with the flick of a wrist. Whether true or not, the stories reveal how the fear of poison stalked every corridor of power. In France, the Medicis were said to maintain entire laboratories devoted to antidotes and alchemy, ensuring their queens and princes could test every bite before it touched their lips. And it wasn't just the royals who feared it. Noblemen, bishops, even merchants lived with the paranoia that wealth or influence made them targets. The act of eating, life's most ordinary ritual, became a gamble. This is why food tasters were more than servants. They were human shields, paid to swallow first, to test each dish while the room watched in nervous silence. A hesitation, a cough, a feint, any of these could send panic racing through a hall. Queens were especially vulnerable. They were often foreign brides, married off to cement alliances, mistrusted in their new courts, and viewed as outsiders. Poison was the perfect weapon against them. Discreet, deniable, and capable of erasing a dynasty's future in minutes. It's no wonder some turned to daily doses of toxins, building immunity like armor under silk gowns and jeweled crowns. Catherine de Medici, the queen consort of France in the 16th century, is one of the most infamous examples. Surrounded by political enemies, accused by Protestants of being the architect of massacres, she was rumored to keep poisons hidden in her cabinets and antidotes in her bedchamber. Some even swore she traveled with apothecaries who mixed her meals in secret, ensuring no one else could tamper with them. Were these stories exaggerated? Absolutely. Rivals had everything to gain by painting her as a sorceress, a venomous queen whose power came from the vial rather than the crown. But the fact those rumors thrived proves one thing. In Renaissance courts, poison was never just a possibility. It was an expectation. This is why a queen sipping poison each day wasn't just indulging superstition. It was survival in a world where the kiss of a cup could be her last. And as her courtiers bowed low, whispering about her obsession, she knew something they didn't. In her world, paranoia was not weakness. It was policy. To drink poison on purpose sounds like madness. Yet in the deadly world of monarchs, it became a calculated ritual, an attempt to seize control of the very weapon most feared. The practice had a name whispered across centuries: mithridatism. It all began with Mithridates VI of Pontus, a king who ruled in Asia Minor more than 1,000 years before the Renaissance. Obsessed with the idea that enemies would try to kill him with venom, he began experimenting on himself. First a drop, then two, then daily doses of arsenic, snake venom, and other toxins carefully measured. Over years, he supposedly trained his body to resist what would fell another man instantly. Ancient writers swore that when Mithridates was finally cornered by the Romans, he attempted suicide by poison. But the dose that should have killed him had no effect. His own immunity betrayed him. Centuries later, this story was not forgotten. In the alchemical laboratories of Florence, Paris, and Prague, rulers whispered about Mithridatism as if it was secret knowledge. Recipes for antidotes, theriac in Venice, elaborate concoctions of herbs, minerals, and animal parts were guarded like state treasures. Some formulas listed more than 70 ingredients, everything from opium to crushed emeralds, stirred into honey, and taken daily as protection against invisible assassins. Queens, especially those surrounded by rivals, were said to practice this ritual. Catherine de Medici was rumored to sip carefully prepared draughts each morning, her apothecaries adjusting the balance of toxin and cure. To outsiders, it looked like obsession. To her, it was insurance. But the practice was not without risk. Dosage had to be precise. Too little, and the body gained nothing. Too much, and the cure became the killing blow. Some rulers used condemned prisoners as test subjects, forcing them to swallow poisons while physicians observed, scribbling notes on symptoms, timing, and agony. A queen's immunity, in other words, was bought at the price of other suffering. Yet the fascination endured because it fit the mood of the age. The Renaissance was steeped in contradictions. Faith in God coexisted with faith in alchemy, superstition blended with science. Drinking poison to grow strong was both an act of fear and of power, a way of declaring mastery over fate. Of course, not every queen who faced rumors of poison proofing actually practiced it. Rivals weaponized the myth. To accuse a woman of daily contact with venom was to paint her as unnatural, dangerous, closer to witch than queen. But that was the genius of Mithridatism. Whether real or rumored, it terrified people. A queen immune to poison was a queen who could not be killed easily. And in courts, where every goblet, every meal, every kiss of a ring carried suspicion, such an image was as valuable as the crown itself. The truth about queens and poison is slippery. Did some actually drink it in carefully measured doses? Almost certainly. Did others only have the rumor attached to them by enemies who wanted to tarnish their reputation? Without question, what mattered less than truth was perception. And in Renaissance politics, perception could be as lethal as any vial hidden in a sleeve. Take Catherine de Medici once again. She has gone down in history as the Poison Queen, surrounded by whispers of powders, tinctures, and experiments. Yet many of these stories came from Protestant pamphlets designed to blacken her name during France's wars of religion. If a plague swept through Paris, some claimed Catherine had laced the wells. If a noble died unexpectedly, they blamed her apothecaries. Whether she ever drank daily doses of poison to harden her own body mattered less than the fact that everyone believed she could, and would. This pattern repeated across Europe. Elizabeth I of England faced her own rumours, though in her case the whispers revolved around her heavy use of lead-based cosmetics. She wore the mask of youth, a thick white paste that gave her face an unearthly glow, but slowly poisoned her skin and teeth. Was she deliberately courting immunity, or simply a victim of her own vanity? Historians argue both ways. The line between defense and self-destruction blurred in every court. Even the language of rumor was revealing. To accuse a queen of poison was to accuse her of unnatural power, of wielding invisible influence that men could neither see nor fight. Male rulers might be feared for armies, but women were feared for whispers, and poison was the perfect metaphor for their perceived danger. The idea that a queen drank toxins daily turned her from wife and mother into something uncanny, a creature straddling life and death, and paranoia thrived in that environment. Courts designed elaborate systems to detect poison, silver goblets that tarnished when touched with arsenic, pages filled with antidote recipes copied by trembling hands, food tasters recruited from servants who knew their lives could end with a single mouthful. In some palaces, cats and dogs were fed scraps before the royal family touched their meals. Imagine the atmosphere at those tables. Banquets filled with laughter on the surface, but beneath it, every swallow a test of fate. It's no wonder queens leaned into the myth, even if they didn't drink poison each day. Letting people believe they did created an aura of invincibility. If enemies thought venom would not work, they might hesitate to try. And in a world where hesitation could mean survival, the rumor itself became a weapon. So did queens truly sip from cups laced with arsenic and antimony every morning? Sometimes yes, often no. But in the poisonous theater of Renaissance politics, reality mattered less than the spectacle. A queen surrounded by suspicion was a queen who survived another day. Here is the cruel twist. The queens who feared poison most, who guarded their cups and sipped immunity like a daily prayer, were often undone not by assassin's brews, but by the slow creeping toxins hidden in the very trappings of power. Catherine de Medici's name became synonymous with poison, yet she lived into her late 60s, a remarkable age for her era. What really weakened her? Likely the slow toll of illnesses, grief from endless wars, and perhaps the tonics and medicines she trusted too much. Ironically, the woman painted as Europe's mistress of venoms may have outlived many of her enemies, simply because fear kept her cautious. Elizabeth I of England, meanwhile, wore her crown with pride, and her face with a mask of white ceruse, the fashionable cosmetic of the day. Its key ingredient? Lead. Applied daily, it leached into her skin, blackened her teeth, and left her hair brittle. No assassin needed to lace her cup. The poison was already on her face. And still, she believed it kept her beautiful, invincible. In trying to control her image, she consumed her own undoing. Even outside royal chambers, irony reigned. Wealthy nobles coated their walls with pigments rich in arsenic and mercury. Physicians prescribed remedies like mercury vapor for headaches or antimony wine to purge the body, cures that quietly killed. To be rich, powerful, and protected often meant to be marinated in toxins, and the queens who supposedly drank poison each day to defy their enemies. They remind us of a deeper truth. Sometimes the fight against death hastens it. To sip arsenic, even in small amounts, was a gamble no one could win forever. Immunity might buy time, but it never guaranteed safety. In the end, the poisons these queens feared most were not always the ones slipped into goblets by rivals, but the ones baked into their daily lives, their rituals, their crowns. So the legend of the queen who drank poison is both triumph and tragedy. Triumph because it reveals the sheer will to survive in a world where enemies lurked behind every curtain. Tragedy because it shows that even when they beat back the assassins, they could never escape the slow betrayal of their own defenses. The poisoned cup was never just a weapon of murder. It was a mirror, showing how fragile power really is, how close survival sits to ruin, and how even queens who lived with death on their lips could not escape it in the end.